from ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports and NFL Live and so much more. Mina is here. So you want to chime in on the Russ story about his
birthday gate?
I mean, what's your take on the Broncos, Mina?
Oh my gosh!
Go for it. I know that's a very large macro way to go about it. But,
okay.
But what do you got for me?
Well, first I want to start with the birthday thing. If we were talking about this before, if even like 5 people I know come to a party I'm throwing, right, I'm thrilled. Half of a football team is a lot of people, so that's
what I'm saying.
I don't know why people are citing that as though like he's unpopular. I do think we'll talk about the football stuff in a second. It feels a little bit like people are piling on Russell Wilson because having followed his career very closely, obviously, in Seattle, he's always been the same guy. He's just not playing now. So it feels like, and this is not uncommon in sports, the knives are out once the performance dips. But it kind of bothers me a little bit, the sense of the piling on, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm a softie. I mean, how do you feel about it?
Look, if the worst is that he is
a dork.
Putting on airs or anything like that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, right. I mean, honestly, at some point, it's like, we get it. You don't like the guy. Yeah, right, so what? Like, the issue is his team has signed him to a ton of money. Because the issue is if he is unpopular in his own locker room, and the team signed him to a ton of money, and the draft choices that they have given up for him are now something that they need to help rebuild because they are so incredibly valuable based on their incessant losing. That's a problem. Certainly if the coach might not be the guy either. So it's about rehabilitating Russ's career at this point in time in Denver.
Yeah, they should be skipping George Payton's party, not Russell Wilson's party, because he's the one who did that contract. And look, I didn't see this much of a decline in performance coming, but the last 2 years in Seattle were not great. And this was, I think we're seeing why the Seahawks were willing to move on from Russell Wilson. I mean, sure, there's some interpersonal stuff as well, but really for about a couple of years, you saw some pretty inconsistent performance. I think him forcing the ball downfield, a decline in mobility. That's all just been turned up to 11 now in Denver. And they're married to him because of the contract extension, not just because of what they gave up in the trade. And it does feel like they've got to find a coach who's willing to take the job, which is not that attractive because they are married to him, and hope that at least they can get some improvement because it's not been great. Well,
you know how it works in the NFL, Mina, that there's always a coach who says, I can fix that person. There's always that coach. There has to be somebody who looks at Russell Wilson's game and says, I can do something with that. There has to be. And it could be Nathaniel Hackett. I don't know. I just feel like at this point in time that whatever is simmering in that locker room, I mean, Mike Purcell barked at Russ, whether it was, one of those that we look from our couch and say, that looks awful, but he might have been just like, let's go. Who knows? That was right in front of the coach. He was literally right in front of Nathaniel Hackett. And so if this keeps simmering, it has to be on the coach to button it up and tamp it down.
Yeah, he seems to not really, I'm going to speculate, but he's most likely to be the scapegoat. No, I wouldn't say scapegoat because I actually think he deserves a lot of criticism for game management and play calling and whatnot. But I don't think this is an attractive coaching job as well. I know there's always a coach who says, I can fix him, especially when there's a young player and a coach thinks, well, he's clay, I could mold him. Russell Wilson's not clay. He is who he is. And that's why I think I was really confused before the season when there was some, I guess, hope that, he's going to be paired with Nathaniel Hackett. It's going to be a different kind of offense. We're going to see a different Russ. Russell Wilson plays Russell Wilson football. And a lot of coaches are not drawn to that because he plays outside of structure. He always has. He's not a very
schedule guy.
He's not a coachable quarterback. And I have to say, I don't think many coaches, at least many of the more appealing candidates, will be drawn to that job.
So if you were a head coach or counseling head coach, you'd say take Carolina first? You would go?
I would rather, I would. Wouldn't you? I mean, the opportunity to mold a young quarterback, you got some young pieces there across the team. Expectations are fairly low because it's a rebuild.
Mina Kimes here on the Rich Eisen Show. So I don't think John Schneider and Carroll, in their wildest dreams, would have thought the first first rounder that they would use on Russ. Well, obviously they used one this past time, but the next first rounder that they would use on Russ would be top 5. I mean, top 5. And I know that they've lost 2 in a row, and I saw them in Munich, and I was really surprised at the result after seeing them and interviewing them, and how they were bouncing off the walls and were feeling great, and then losing to the Raiders at home. What's your take on the Seahawks and the NFC West as it currently stands right now?
You know, with the Seahawks, obviously they've surpassed expectations no matter what. Geno Smith, who I think was on last time I was here, and you got him to coin "Let's work" as a phrase.
That's right. Let's work.
That should really take off.
Hashtag.
That's something we learned this season, that Geno kind of has bars. He has a lot of good catchphrases.
What you should also look, Chris, is when is his birthday? We'll check on his RSVP list to see how many Seahawks show up.
I bet a lot. He seems really popular.
More than Russ's party?
Really well liked. But yeah, no, the offense I think is I don't think Geno's regressed. Obviously, he's had a couple of turnovers in the last couple of weeks, some of which were not his fault. But I think we've still seen reasonably high level play from him. It's really the defense that's been up and down, which anyone could have predicted coming into the season because there were so many holes. It's a very young defense. There's going to be ups and downs. It looks like they had kind of made some adjustments after about week 4 or so, then improved, especially the run defense. Now you're seeing a bit of a dip. So I think it's going to be, incumbent upon that staff to get that side of the ball back in order, get right opportunity against, of course, a Rams offense that probably won't even have Matthew Stafford. But, they're a wild card contender.
Yes.
And I think that's any Seahawks fan should be happy with that.
Well, certainly signed for it going into the season, as now we're entering week number 13. Mina Kimes from NFL Live. How's your podcast doing as well?
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's good. We're 2 times a week now, Mina Kimes Show.
Okay, very good. Very good. Everyone should check that out right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Mina Kimes in studio. So who was your Super Bowl prediction going into the season?
We had the same one.
We did. So Bills versus the Bucks. On my weekly show on NFL Network, Game Day Morning, on Thanksgiving, they allowed me a mulligan. I took it.
Ooh.
Yeah, every Thanksgiving show we're allowed a mulligan from our preseason pick. I took it. I got off of Bills and Bucks and went on Chiefs and Niners.
I was just about to say that. What is with this?
Look at us.
Wow, look at you.
This is us. Right
literally,
now.
When you said mulligan, and I was thinking, my wheels were like, okay, what's my
Okay. So did you choose the Niners or the Chiefs to win it? Who did you choose?
Chiefs.
I went the other way.
Okay, well.
I went the other way. I just can't
quit that, man.
Kyle Shanahan, and I can't quit McCaffrey's addition.
Yeah.
And then I also love what the defense is doing. If they stay healthy,
incredible.
They can really just take down anybody. And that's the thought I have about getting past the Eagles as well. Jalen Hurts, your reigning offensive player of the week in the NFC. What he just did was just spectacular, and he is an MVP candidate for sure. But that's where I'm standing right now on that front.
I think it's a tough matchup, too, for the Eagles, not just to talk about the defense, but the Eagles' weakness, as we've seen over the last few weeks, have been stopping the run. So the fact that the Niners and the Cowboys are the 2, foremost competitors in the NFC is not great for them, even with Jordan Davis coming back. This Niners defense, first of all, this week against Miami, oh my God.
I know, right?
Why is that not in prime time? It's infuriating to me.
It is, as a matter of fact. It is on Sunday night, isn't it?
No.
No. It's an afternoon game.
Cowboys.
That's right. My bad.
Colts, Cowboys.
My bad.
But I just love watching them so much.
Mm-hmm.
The defensive line, it reminds me a little bit actually of the Super Bowl Eagles, where it's just waves of dudes. Every defensive lineman who comes and plays for Chris Kirk and that defense suddenly has like this rebirth of his career. They get Eric Armstead back, hopefully this week. And then behind them, I don't think enough people are talking about the season that Fred Warner is having. He's always been one of the best middle linebackers of football, playing out of his mind. So to have him manning the middle against the field against a Dolphins offense this week that specializes in middle of the field throws.
Yes.
I mean, you can't ask for a better matchup than that.
Yeah, McDaniel bringing this team in.
Ooh, and it's getting spicy. Have you been following a little bit of the...
Go for it.
So I think it was, I don't want to misattribute this, but I think it was Raheem Mostert who,
that's right.
Ty Dunn quoted him being a little bit chippy about leaving San Francisco, and then there's been some chirps back and forth between
Well, he said he hasn't. Now I know what you're picking up on what you're saying. He said he wasn't being. He was sort of backpedaling back a little bit about Jimmy G and all that stuff.
But it's out of the cage now, and you're getting little chippy quotes between both sides. And
this is a great matchup, and I don't think anybody saw the Dolphins having the better record. And Tua looking the way that he's looked going into this game. Nobody saw that one coming either.
It's just such a great styles make fights kind of matchup too, because these offenses they share the same DNA, but they've gone in like two totally different directions in terms of yards after the catch and the way that offense and the way the quarterbacks what they're asked to do, and it's just so exciting.
So I'll give you here's a sports talk radio conversation. we don't have the topic bar at the bottom that you might be used to on ESPN. But the team that's on the outside, not a division leader right now, one would say, that has the best chance to make it, the Dolphins or the Bengals. Who would you choose right now?
Oh, are the Dolphins not in the lead?
They have a piece right now. What do you got?
I would go with the Dolphins, although I really love what the Bengals have been doing. The Bengals have the hardest schedule, I think, in the NFL remaining, which is...
We got the Chiefs this week, too.
That's going to be really challenging. I really like some of the adjustments they've made. I thought the defense in particular against Tennessee was spectacular. But the Dolphins' offense right now is just something new. Right? Like, you've watched a lot of football. Mm-hmm. I mean, the combination of those two wide receivers with this scheme and then a quarterback who has total faith in the scheme and makes those anticipatory throws over the middle of the field, it just feels like new to me. And I think they're about to go into a really difficult stretch. They're going to be tested in a way they haven't been over the last few weeks.
Yes.
But I just think that combination, that speed, all of it is just so hard to defend.
Yeah, I have the schedules right here. I mean,
it gets tough.
We've been talking about the 6-week stretch that Tua will have to finish and the Dolphins will have to finish with. This is where rubber meets road, including 3 road games in a row. They got San Francisco, then they come down just up the road here to take on the Chargers. That's just been flexed into the latest example of what Denver has wrought, that they NBC says, we'll take the Mahomes game off our schedule. That's now been flexed into a Sunday night game. And then the Miami Dolphins have got a visit to Buffalo to try and sweep the Buffalo Bills before a Christmas Day game against the Packers, at New England, home for the Jets. That's pretty tough. And then you take a look at the Bengals' remaining schedule. I mean, would you say it's tougher? You got home for Kansas City, home for Cleveland, the Battle of Ohio. We all know that Cleveland just absolutely tricked them instead of the treat on Halloween night. See what I did just there? At Tampa, at New England, home for Buffalo, home for Baltimore.
Ooh, both tough.
It's tough.
I think both are playoff teams, though, regardless. And I think whoever makes it through better is the more ready for January.
Well, that's what I like. That's what I like about the Bengals is that I feel like they're so battle tested right now. Like getting through this stretch without Jamar Chase, and you've seen the offense really evolve a lot over the course of the season. We talked about this in my podcast this week. Mm-hmm. You know, the Bengals' struggles against cover 2, Tampa 2 at the beginning of the season were well documented. Those goal balls just weren't there. The offensive line was struggling. They couldn't get anything going in the run game. It was also siloed. And you've seen like Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor just kind of like evolve a little bit week to week. And against Tennessee, you saw it wasn't really airing it out against those defensive looks, but he was willing to take what was given to him. He wasn't pressured that much. And then when the deep shots to Teakins opened up the sideline, he took them in the second half. And I watched that. I was like, oh man, this Bengals team is actually better than they were last season. They got a little lucky last season with injuries and competition, but this version, they've kind of been through the fire, and I think they're going to come out on the other side better for it.
And prior to the Tennessee game, the NFL Network research staff, the crack staff there, came out with a graphic that we put up on the screen on NFL Game Day morning on Sunday, is that this Bengals team and last year's Bengal team, through 10 games, same record, same points per game that they score. I mean, literally same offensive touchdowns, almost the same points per game allowed. They have the same base through 10 games this year as they had last year. So it's entirely possible they can go on that run. And, of course, that run last year did start with a home victory against the Chiefs, and that's who they have this week. It is kind of wild how much we're overlooking them, but nobody saw the Dolphins coming. I mean, the AFC is somewhat, you could say, wide open. Mina here on the Rich Eisen Show. Who is your coach of the year right now? Who would you say is your coach of the year?
This is always a weird award because it's often just like who turned around their team the most, who came in with the lowest which I think is why Brian Daboll was leading for a lot of people. But you can also give it to the coach of who seems to be like have the most impact. And for me, that's probably Mike McDaniel right now. And it goes beyond scheme, although I love watching their offense. Like I am eating every clip that comes out where it's him talking about Tua or vice versa. I just eat it up, because I think it captures like the other side of coaching, right? The confidence, the emotional intelligence aspect of it. Do you remember that clip a few years ago of Steve Kerr talking to Steph Curry and just like reassuring him?
Yes.
And it's freaking Steve Kerr. It's Steph Curry rather. So It's just like what. But that was so. I don't know. That really got to me. And when I watched Tua talking about how he thought he sucked until Mike McDaniel came along. If that's not amazing coaching, like what is?
Yeah, I know. Did you know what
the one that came out today of him talking about how Mike McDaniel was going to go, I YouTubed you and your technique was trash. Did you see that one?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
That's a new one from yesterday.
Yeah, well, you're referring to my my colleague from NFL Network for so many years now on CBS. Aditi Kinkhabwala had a sideline report during the Dolphins-Texans game saying that Tua told her and the rest of the broadcast team in their pre-broadcast meeting that Tua said half the time last year, many times he looked in the mirror saying, "Do I suck?" And McDaniel came in and not only told him, by the way, you don't, but he had 700 plays of Tua. He put together a video of 700 Tua snaps to show him why he does not suck. And that's part of the coaching that I think you're bringing to bear right here. And then, I just love the guy just from his sense of humor aspect. I mean, we gave him 3 coaching cliches that we wanted him to use in his press conferences this fall. He goes, not only will I do it, I'll do it at the combine, and then he did it. So you had fun in that. And so you think to yourself, okay, what's going to happen though when adversity hits? How are you going to handle that? Obviously, the whole concussion stuff with Tua was definitely a very difficult period. To watch him navigate that and negotiate that, some of his answers were a little bit lacking, to say the least.
Totally.
But Tua's now back, and that is not an issue that we're either focusing on or is an issue, period, anymore. I just love his demeanor during the games. The NFL films picked him up. Saying to Justin Fields, stop.
I know, that was really funny.
When Justin Fields was running all over him, stop. And then he was asked during the press conference the next, a few days later, it's like, what were you doing telling him to stop? Because I just figured I'd just ask nicely, It's just like, this is a guy who's taken Don Shula's seat, many times removed. It really is amazing to see. But then the other thing, too, and for Coach of the Year award, Mina Kimes here, is also... Why wouldn't, if Mahomes is the clear MVP, right? Yeah. Would he be your MVP through 12
weeks?
Yeah. Okay, he's ours too. We went through the process yesterday with ranked choice voting and things like that.
Oh, wow.
He was first place in all 3 of our ballots here.
Reluctantly.
So if Mahomes is the MVP of this league, and he is MVP, and the part of the reason is despite Tyreek Hill is gone, and look at how the offense still is amazing. Why isn't Andy Reid getting that run? Just because he's Andy Reid and he's been there for 20 years.
That's it. TLDR, yes. But I've said this on our show a few times. Like, I actually think this is one of Andy Reid's finest seasons as a coach. It's one of his most creative seasons, play calling. Like what the Chiefs do with their use of tight ends now and throwing out a heavy personnel and running out of and just constantly dictating to defenses is, to me, so impressive and so hard to stop. And that is Reid and Bieniemy. Like it's so incredible, but I think you're right, because he's been a coach for so long and because we've celebrated him for so long, we're probably going to take it for granted. I mean, Coach of the Year is, like I said, it's the new guy, right? Pretty much every year. I mean, not always the new guy, but it's the breakout. It really
Sirianni could be considered that too, right? I mean, I know that this isn't his first year, but what he has done with this offense, and then I didn't know he was so mouthy and chesty, like he talks with his chest aggressive. And he's like barking at fans.
He
and
is chesty,
and you could see, I mean, don't read his lips sometimes. And Philly fans dig that. Dig it. I mean, I didn't see this. Remember his first press conference in Philadelphia, and we're just like, oh, God, who is this guy? Why was he hired? Can he talk to the media? Oh, yeah. He can.
He plays to them, the fan base, a lot, pretty hard, yeah.
Does he ever? And Philly fans have eaten it up, and why not?
Yeah.
I mean, and Hurts is that spectacular. Okay, so who's on your pod this week? Let's give your pod a little run here.
So I have Dominique Foxworth now every Tuesday,
Great.
which is really fun. And this week we picked, actually we do a Monday night recap. We talked a bit about Kenny Pickett, how we were impressed by him.
He's really good, huh?
I was really impressed. By
the way, you just went higher register. You know, here on the show, when you go higher register, you sometimes have to do that to believe what you're saying. So be careful.
Oh my God!
In this spot, you know, he's pretty good. Like he's pretty good. Like we heard that, but you do believe he's pretty good.
No, you're right. I kind of believe. Sure. You just nailed it.
Yeah, you gotta go higher register.
I backed off that mid take. You totally caught me. I think he's pretty good.
That's it.
We said the same thing yesterday, though. He's not bad.
He's better than I expected, and most importantly, he's getting the ball out quickly, which I didn't think he was going to be able to do.
He's getting the reps. I mean, who else from this rookie class, the quarterback class, getting the reps?
I gotta say, the two gloves still bothers me.
Why?
Yeah.
Kurt Warner was a two-glove guy.
He got the baby hands, right?
I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
Boy.
It's weird.
I don't think he's fumbled a lot, though.
Well, the gloves are sticky. That's why.
Well, I mean, you want to talk about a story that's amounted to nothing is his hand size, right?
Have we seen him play in inclement weather, though? It's December, Rich. Let's keep an eye on that one.
Don't
claim that.
Keep an eye on the small hand story
watch.
from February.
Yeah.
That's right. We're sleeping on the small hand story.
You know?
All right, so that's what you're talking about on your pod, the Mina Kime Show. Do I say it's in the Pod Center? Is that the way it goes? Pod Center?
I always say wherever you get your pods because I can't say the word podcasts.
Yeah, okay. Is that what it is? Okay, where you get your pods.
It's hard to say.
I'm in the Pod Center because I did Schefter's podcast.
Oh.
Yeah. Adam had me on to do the whole Michigan thing.
Oh, that's good. Oh, right. You guys have that.
I've known him since the late 80s, Adam Schefter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I could tell you stories. But I won't. Actually, you never know. Thank you for coming on, Mina. This is delightful once again, just like the last time you were here. And keep looking for my phone call if you don't mind.
Chiefs-Niners.
That's it?
We're going to revisit that.
Okay, so you took the Chiefs, I took the Niners.
It's the kiss of death, actually, with these two.
That's the problem. We cancel each other out, and it's going to be Bills-Bucks anyway.
I was going to say, you should have stuck with Bills-Bucks.
I didn't hear Cowboys get mentioned in there, but...
You know.
Orlovsky really doesn't eat what's his his diet. I know you guys tweet about this.
Takes.
What is his?
It's exactly as he presents it. There's no front. He eats like a child, maybe.
Does he really?
You know how your kids
candy
I'll
stuff?
eat 5 things. Yeah, he eats candy. It's like bland foods, candy, and Chardonnay.
Chardonnay.
Yeah.
So he'll pop open an oaky Chardonnay and have
Oh, he likes wine. Yeah.
No. I mean that's great. I'm more of a red wine guy. White wine kind of gives me a little bit of a headache. That's my reaction. But I wouldn't eat gummies with it. Is that what you're saying? What is he?
It's just I can't. Again, I just keep going back to a child because the thing about Dan is there's a lot of foods he hasn't tried. So
he won't even try them.
No, he will. So we went to Vegas for Pro Bowl or one of the things.
Pro Bowl, yeah.
We went to Major Domo, which is one of David Chang's restaurants there. And we ordered the whole menu. And watching Dan try new foods for the first time was one of my favorite experiences ever because he liked them all. He had just never tried them.
What's for an example?
He had never had a lot of raw fishes. He had not tried before.
Is it a texture thing for him?
He just hasn't tried a lot of foods.
Man, I love the guy. What a weirdo.
It's amazing, but it's fun. Introducing someone to new food for the first time and watching them eat it is.
I know. I have a 9-year-old at home.
Literally the same experience. I cannot stress it is identical to a child.
You've got a 2.5-year-old at home, almost 3.
Yep.
Have you stopped referring to him in months? Has he gotten that old now?
Yeah.
Okay.
He'll be 3 in February, so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No more months.
Mina Kime's kind enough to stick around here to talk Dallas Cowboys. TJ Jefferson was wondering where the Cowboys stand in your pecking order. They stand where?
Where's the
Where
love?
I mean, I would have them in the top 5 with the Niners and the Eagles. I actually think all 3 of those teams are pretty equal, honestly. And I think they're equal because I talked about this earlier. I don't think the Cowboys are a good matchup for the Eagles this next time around. We talk a lot about the Eagles running game and obviously the quarterback and what he does for them and how great that offensive line is.
Right.
The Cowboys arguably have the 2nd best rushing attack in the NFL.
I'm a big Pollard guy. Huge.
Oh my God. But when Zeke was out and Pollard had that big game, you also saw the other backup running backs just going off. The offensive line, the way the scheme has evolved a little bit, Kellen Moore and how he has approached the run, it's really, really hard to stop.
Especially since Tyron Smith's injury was supposed to be the end of it. And it wasn't. I
thought the offensive line was going to be such an issue for the Cowboys at the beginning of the season, and it has not been an issue at all.
And one would think Micah Parsons, who says, call me a lion, if he is the lion, with Matt Ryan standing back there, it could be a National Geographic documentary.
Oh, my God, I forgot. Yeah. Oh, God, that Colts offensive line against the Cowboys pass rush.
So bad.
And Matt, God bless, watching him try to escape. How the hell did the Raiders let him run for 40 yards? What the hell was that about?
He had a 20-yard run
on Monday. I
on
don't
Monday.
want to talk about it. Well, it needed to be 21 before he dove, right?
Yeah. That's one of the tape. I forgot who the Raiders linebacker was watching that. I'm like, you can't be in a meeting room that week watching Matt Ryan go.
I mean, it's like 20 yards is enough, but then it's just he keeps running. It's like, is somebody going to tackle this guy? He looked like the yodeler on Price is Right, just slowly going up and just keep on yodeling.
I think you would beat him, Rich. You probably would.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. It sounds like it's just a brutal matchup. On Sunday
and the
night.
Cowboys. The Cowboys defense. Like we talk a lot about Micah Parsons, but they're probably one of my favorite units to watch every week because Dan Quinn varies up the game plan. What they do in terms of disguise on the back end, their simulated pressures on the front end, the games that they run, it's really creative. Which, by the way, I didn't think Dan Quinn was going to make this kind of evolution at this point in his career. It's so fun to watch. I feel like the only thing holding people back from believing in the Cowboys is that they're the Cowboys.
Well, I mean...
No, but like when you really get into the nuts and the bolts of the team and you start looking at the matchups, they're so good. And they match up so well with so many of the other teams in the NFC.
Well, the reason why you offended TJ is he still, when you think of the Cowboys, he still thinks of the 90s and the rest of the United
I had a lot
States.
Of good years back then.
I know, but that's why, again, the way that the season ended last year is still something
the draw.
That just screams at you. But we haven't seen a lot of those moments this year at all.
Dak needed that last year, just like Jordan had to get beat up by the Pistons to take the next.
Oh,
level.
really?
He needed that time clock management.
Wow.
Did the Niners not shake their hands at the end? Is that what it was?
Well, I just hope that he uses that to elevate him to the next level. It's something I got to believe in, man, just to help me get through this.
Do you believe in Dak, Mina? Because was it LaShawn McCoy or whoever was going after him on Twitter
McCoy.
saying he wasn't the guy?
Yeah, no, I do. I think he's playing really good football right now. Every now and then he kind of forces it a little bit, which he shouldn't. Like this offense, again, is so... everything, the pieces around him are so good, and we'll see if they sign OBJ, but... He doesn't need to force some of those throws. Now, I will say a lot of the interceptions this year have not been his fault, actually. It's been the receivers in certain cases. But he's playing at a really high level right now, and I do believe in him.
The practice window for James Washington just opened up, too.
Yep.
So there are some reinforcements, potentially even Odell, too. Look, and the whole thing, the reason why but by the way, Shady is a flamethrower, huh? In his media business. Yeah, I know he's a hot taker. Yeah. The whole idea was just like when Dak comes back, Cooper Rush just showed you the offense doesn't need to have a 400-yard passing game, doesn't need to, and he hasn't delivered it, and he hasn't forced it either.
Yeah.
But he also can run. I mean,
that's huge.
Yeah, I have no concerns about that.
That was a huge issue for him last year. If you're a Cowboys fan, you might have had the same frustration watching him that I did, which was it felt like when he came back from the injury, he wouldn't take off at times when he had those opportunities. They weren't using him in the boot game as much, in the option game, because he can run. You're right, and I feel like that's something that the Cowboys could tap into even more.
Yeah, culture. So that would be huge because we're assuming that this is a win for the Cowboys. And the Eagles have to, as Mike Vrabel famously said on this program, take your heart pills and buckle up. That's going to be just a Donnybrook, man. The A.J. Brown Bowl coming up between the Eagles and Tennessee.
Oh, that's right.
So if this is a Tennessee victory, that means the Cowboys get that one game closer that they need before that Christmas rematch that you're saying is a worse matchup for Philadelphia this time around.
Oh, it's such a good game.
It is.
My God.
Week 13 is quite scrumptious. And it starts on Thursday night with the Bills going out at Buffalo versus Belichick. Can't wait. Thanks for coming on here, Mina Kimes.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Absolutely. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.